This is Critical Nonsense, our high-lowbrow show about culture, science, and tech. This week, special guest Hannah Jegart joins us to talk about falling in love with stuff later in life, and also what communities we're part of.
Woo!
Oh. No, that's a good idea. This is what a Joey sounds like. And this is what an executive producer and Olivia Rodrigo, Jess Vander, sounds like.
Hi, this is Jess.
My favorite way of doing your things is just to call you another name before your name.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, because it's more confusing. It just delights me. And
like,
this is what a special guest, Hannah Jegart, sounds like. Hannah, if you have any modifiers or honorariums you'd like to add, please feel free.
Chronic. What's the opposite of an oversleeper? An undersleeper?
Insomniac?
Yeah.
No, just undersleeping.
Just like a little bit less. Just like 7 and 15. Like 7 hours and 15 minutes of.
Like I wake up at 6 a.m. and I'm like,
sleep.
yeah, this is good. I'll do this.
Really? Ooh.
Opting
brutal.
I guess I'm a chronic undersleeper, but I think it's just like has kids, like will not sleep type of thing. I know there are people that are like, I went to bed at like 9:30 last night and I'm like, I wish. Like I like wake back up at 9:30 and I'm like, why is this happening to me? But here I am.
I treat it like gambling, you know? I'm like, let's see what a 5 a.m. wake up feels like at 1 p.m. Like just stretching my mind.
Yeah. Housekeeping. I got someone shared a fun story with me this week that listens to the show that they went and got tested for ADHD after listening to the show and have ADHD. And that was a really like heartwarming thing. It's sort of earlier on we had done the episode where we talked about IVF and someone reached out afterwards and said that they like started looking into it and digging into it. So if you have any stories about something that the show did for you, it really made my day. So please feel free to share at just critical nonsense at sylvain.co. Share any stories. I'm not anticipating tons of stories like that, but if you got them, share them. Any other housekeeping, Jess?
No, but that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I was very excited. Without further ado, Hannah, I heard you're having a quarter life crisis.
Is it quarter? Will I live that long? Tell me,
wow.
Genie. Tell me, Genie man.
Tell me, Genie.
Why am I falling in love with things in my 30s?
You're just coming in hot. I don't know. Why are you falling in love with things?
Also, what are you falling in love with? Many questions.
I mean, I'm falling in love with specifically things that I used to not enjoy. And I can't tell if it's just that I am running out of like potential hobbies or interests. And so I'm just digging back into the crates to see if maybe things have changed. But specifically running is one thing that I did in high school. And I did it because all my friends were doing it. And then I sort of enjoyed it. But then like everyone got eating disorders and it got weird. And I was like, okay, I think I'm going to sit this one out and just go to college. And then never got back into it. And then recently I was telling Joey that I started eating like MacroBars, which are like, I just had a total Regina-George moment where I was like, oh, I'm going to
actual real life Regina-George moment.
Yeah. But I did it to myself, which is the sad part. And I was like, oh, I'll just get these like bars. Like this will, I'm tired of cooking and like doing things and whatever. And I put on like 15 pounds over quarantine. And I was like, oh, whoa, this is crazy. And it's sort of why I started running. And I thought maybe like, I'm getting in my 30s, like my body's changing. Maybe
there it is. Metabolism.
Yeah. And I was like, it's all going downhill from here. Meanwhile, I'm 31. I am not old in any sense. But, and then I ran out of MacroBars and just got lazy and never bought them. And have just been shedding
the pounds.
And I realized that it was the MacroBars because
wow.
Yeah.
I literally use MacroBars to try and get calories into my body.
I have MacroBars,
what's in
but I'm
these
trying
things
to
anyways?
gain weight.
Yeah.
Literally.
Yeah.
I've been bulking, I guess, all of quarantine.
Wow, that's amazing.
I mean, I think it's interesting. So there was this Scientific American piece that came out relatively recently, and it's behind a paywall. So I got to read like snippets from the author who was like posting chunks of it because I didn't pay for the scientific or New Scientist, not Scientific American. It was a New Scientist piece, but it was about sort of the things that you're good at different ages of. Like I think they were defining ages in like 10-year spans of like in your 20s, in your 30s, things like that. And one of the things that they talked about in your 30s was actually endurance.
Yeah.
You become much better at endurance. Maybe I didn't get to read the whole article, so I don't know.
No, I mean, that
you only know your 10s, 20s, and 30s.
It totally makes sense because like endurance was always the thing that I struggled with. Like I ran predominantly like track, like basically anything under 400 meters. And now I'm like, oops, got lost and did a 6-mile run. Whoops. But I'm like, yeah, that was fun. That was cool. I'd do it again. Why not?
Wait, presumably the endurance, though, is talking about like mental. Or is it also like physical? I mean, like you can just...
For me, it's both. Like,
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the interesting part of it is like, we are changing. I think there's like this tendency, right, in terms of the question of like, why am I falling in love with new things at a different part of my life? There's like a tendency to think of ourselves as static. And I know everyone is like, I'm changing, I'm growing, I'm working on me, like whatever, like cliche thing that is sort of in the moment. But the reality is we still have a tendency to think of our personalities and our likes and dislikes in a static sense because you're sort of inside of it, right? And so even when you sort of like think back to memories from earlier in your life, you're thinking about them through your current lens, and those things are evolving. And so the idea of like, even just that, like a thing I didn't like because I was either just not good at it or sort of not equipped for it in some capacity is really interesting because you're not the same, right? Like you're just not the same person in your 30s as you are in your teens, right?
Don't get me started. I've been watching Adam Curtis documentaries for the past 2 weeks, and I'm a wreck.
Who is Adam Curtis? I don't know who that is.
Okay, I feel so much better every time someone says that because he's this like BBC like executive producer. Like he started making these documentaries like I think in the early 2000s, kind of tracing like everything from like a financial crisis like in the 60s into like that's why we have the internet. But he has this very like collage-y style, and because he has access to the entire BBC archive, which is like one of the biggest like film archives in the world, like it's just crazy footage that you've never seen strung together in this way, and it's really fun. And they talk about ecology and like how in the beginning they thought they could just program different ecosystems and build ecosystems within computers because everything has a system and a structure and like a set like finite thing. And then they realized later on that they're just like, no, it's just pure chaos. Like the ecosystem, like the world, like plants, people, financial models, like all of it is just like, it's pure chaos. Like we cannot replicate this. And they talk about like neural networks and like the discovery of like the binary code and things like that. And it's most of those things like failed in their original attempt to like make sense of something, and then later they were like, oh, binary code actually makes sense for this other thing, just not for the first thing. But basically what I'm learning is that like everything is chaos and we cannot predict the future.
Well, yeah, it's like complex systems, right? Like that's basically what you're talking about, right? We talked at some point about like equifinality, about how like in complex systems there are many routes to the same end, right? Like you can reach the same final point and take many, many different paths to get there. But I think like the flip side of that is, right, the reason why meteorology, despite all of the technology that we have right now, is not particularly effective is because you can never know all of the data points, right? The system is so complex, you can't predict the future because you can't know all of the data points. And I think in the same way, right, like even like twin studies and the divergence of twin studies over time and twins' personalities, like identical twins, is the result of just there are so many stimuli that are, each of us is being confronted with that, there are these sort of like emergent things. And so even thinking about things that you would fall in love with in your 30s is like a result of, if you compare yourself at 31 versus 21, it's like 50% longer lifetime of experiences and stimuli that you've been confronted with that have had like some sort of emergent effect within your personality and your neural processing and all of that to be like, oh, cool. Like now I'm into this thing. On top of it, the fact that like your body is very different in those same ways, right? Like the fact that you're, your hormones are wildly different from decade to decade and things like that. And so the sort of like internal environment is changing, your external environment is changing. You have all of these new things. Are there other things that you're like finding yourself that enjoying that you didn't like before?
My recorder.
You're playing the recorder?
I bought one over quarantine because I wanted to learn an instrument and everything else sounded really hard. And so
I started running and playing the recorder naturally.
I can play Despacito and half of the Titanic theme song.
Those are the only two songs you need.
I mean, the best part about it,
those are the two songs,
is that our landlord used to live below us, moved out, got new tenants while we were gone for a couple months, and we met them the day I got my recorder. And so Yas, my husband, was like, oh yeah, I'm Yas. I work from home. You might hear music sometimes, but I'm really like, mostly headphones. You probably won't hear me. And that was the same day that I got the recorder and was practicing and learning Despacito. And for weeks we were like, we need to tell them that it's me and that they're not like, yeah,
that's his music.
Freelance musician. Like,
Jess, are there any things that you're like finding like emergent affinity for? I mean, I'm wondering how much of this too is like just the conditions of the pandemic to sort of creating opportunities for serendipity to like fall in love with something new.
Well, that's what I'm wondering. I mean, like technically this doesn't apply to me yet, but also just wondering what are there things you can fall in love with in your 30s that you can't fall in love with in your 20s or other 10s?
I think it's more about the headspace that you're in at that point in your life. Like, are you more open to like doing different things, or are you falling more into like, I guess, I don't know. Actually, there is no answer. See, Adam Curtis. It's just chaos. There's no rhyme or reason for any of it.
I mean, there's a reason for your recorder thing. That is...
Honestly, no. That was like a 2 a.m.
joy.
That was a 2 a.m. I was on samash.com and noticed they had neon green recorders, and I was like,
and that it was cool. I recently got rid of my elementary school recorder, and I thought of you. I thought, wait, but what if I play my recorder? And then I was like, no, that's
Nora
crazy.
has one. Resident Cutie has one.
I can't stand by and let y'all start a recorder band. That is just like so tragic.
So. It's more like a recorder chorus. Okay.
I don't know. I mean, I guess like the like cycling and stuff was something that I'd had a hiatus from through college just because I didn't have a bike with me and couldn't do it. But then when I moved to the city and started commuting again, that was like I'd ridden all the time when I was younger and then got back into it. And you sort of have that different appreciation for it. And I guess like a little bit video games. I mean, I don't play that much, but it was like in my like 20s, it was, you know, filling time with a lot of different things at some point. And I've done a little bit more of playing video games, but I mean, otherwise I'm picking up new dumb things like D&D or like
D&D is not dumb.
Yeah, D&D's, as we learned, it has so much to teach us. Also, it's total sidebar, but there are definitely some things that if your collective, say, friend group or, you know, your near-in peers are all entering a phase of something, for instance, like people having babies. Before, you're like, whatever, babies are cool, but like, whatever. And then you have an excuse at a certain juncture to then develop your interest in babies.
Do people have babies because their friends are having babies?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I feel like a lot.
I'm not saying it's a good idea. I'm just saying it for sure happens.
Or just like, it's time now, because before it didn't make sense, but now that other people are having babies, it makes sense to have babies so that we can just like be part of this thing. This like thing of having baby lifestyle.
We don't have a lot of friends with kids that are similarly aged, at least not like near us. And it is definitely a thing where it's like you want your kids to be similarly aged so they can play together.
Yeah.
And we don't have that. But sometimes I'm like, oh, well, like if we have a second kid, like who else around us is having a kid? Like, can it? Yeah. But I think there are definitely people where they're like, we're best friends. And so this one got pregnant, so I'm going to get pregnant too. So that we can sort of, I think it is like an opportunity to sort of like stay in sync with like someone that you're close with, because, you know, your vibe changes naturally, right? Like you have more responsibilities. So it sort of throws you into a new trajectory. And so you are able to stay with someone.
Yeah. And to be fair, I bet most people process it more just like, we weren't ready, but now we're ready. But actually the key signal of somebody feeling ready is just like, does it feel like it's a good time? Because that's the thing now.
Well, isn't the
hang
joke
out with kids?
Isn't the joke like there never really is a good time to have kids? You just kind of do it when you feel like it.
It's not a joke. That's real.
Yeah.
That's just facts. That's just facts. I mean, I think the closest thing that, as I'm thinking about it, that sort of I turned on more in my 30s was like food and wine. And I think honestly, like candidly, it was just like novelty, right? Like it was an opportunity. I'm definitely not like, I would never describe myself as a foodie or anything like that, but
that's
like
okay.
those new sort of experiences, or the fact that you have like a lifetime of breadth of experiences to pull from when trying things or trying new flavors, things like that. I think you all of a sudden you have like a deeper appreciation for things like the older you get, because, you know, as also like when I was in my 20s, I was like, I'm broke. Like, I am very happy with like dollar slices and stuff like that. And I think when you have like a little bit more means and more experiences, that you've tried more things, like all of a sudden there is like that new space of like, oh, this is cool. That's interesting. Like that's a new thing. It is. I think there's like a lot of novelty seeking when you're falling in love with these new things at new life stages, because it's like,
yeah.
Okay, like what else?
I guess I have a question though. Then, like, I feel like there are people that, like Jess, like you make space for the things that you love, and you hold space for the things that you love. I feel like for me, and maybe you, Joey, just from what I'm gathering, is like, I feel like I need to like check off a few boxes before I get into like a hobby, or like start to assign like an attribute to myself that may not have been there before. Like maybe Joey, you're like, you said you're not a joiner, but like maybe you're just like checking the like self box off before you get into like extending yourself.
Yeah. Maybe we do a weird episode right now and transition into my question, because it sounds kind of like that's actually what we're doing. So my question that feels related to this was around this idea that we were in a meeting, Hannah and I and a bunch of our team recently, and someone set up an icebreaker for the first time meeting a client. And I didn't know the icebreaker going into the meeting, and so I heard it like live and needed to have an answer quickly. And honestly, it's like a pretty innocuous question. It was just like, like introduce yourself, your name, what you do, and what communities are you a part of? And it was related to the project. And I was like, oh no. Oh no. Like I'm not part of any communities. I need to come up with an answer, and it's getting closer and closer to my turn. And I'm like having this like panic moment. And I don't know whether you noticed it going in, Hannah, but I'm sure you noticed it in my response, where I was like, I'm not really a joiner, so I don't know if I'm part of any community. I guess I'm part of the community at the company, which is true. I feel like our company is a community, and also is sort of like a bullshit answer coming from like one of the in quote leaders of the company to be like, yes, I'm part of our team, and I love us, and we're so good at things. Rah, rah, rah.
Yeah, it's essentially like buying friends. Like,
it
doesn't really count.
Exactly.
I hired all of them, actually.
Yeah, my best friends are the people who I hired. I think it's like sadder than anything if that were true. But it's just like, I don't, I think I had this sort of like existential moment where I was like, am I not part of a community? Like, do I need to be part of a community? And I think a lot of it goes to what you were sort of talking about, Hannah, where I don't know if I love anything like that much. Like I don't run into a lot of obsessions. It is like I have many interests and like few obsessions. And I'm also sort of in this orientation where like maybe as people who are like studying people all the time, or just being empathetic, or being weird, or coming from, I'm always afraid to be like, I'm a member of that community, one, as if someone is like policing whether I would be like approve, like I have my like card carrying member of X community. And then two, I'll look at communities and I'll be like, oh, maybe I'm a member of that community. And then like someone will do something dumb and I'm like, I don't want to be lumped in with that person. And then like kind of reel back. And so I guess my question for y'all is, what communities are you part of?
Jess, you go first. I'm closer to
Hannah's
Joey.
having an existential question.
Well, if the question is it's tying the two together, it's kind of like, are there things that you want to be associated with, and how that is separate from the things that you do or like or try? And I think Hannah's original question is about the second one, right? Just like the stuff that you're exploring or trying. And it's interesting that you were saying before Joey asked his question, which I think is more about the former, of like me being the kind of person that makes space for the things that I love. And I'm trying to figure out, talking it through, like, what is I make space for a lot of things I like to do, but does that mean that I am a part of all of those communities? I guess it's also related to Joey, like that existential crisis seems sparked by a narrow concept of community, of like, you have to pass a certain threshold of like, I actively identify as this thing and I actively participate in this thing with other people, right? Like you can't even just do it solo, which I actually think there are a lot of things that I'm very much interested in and I pursue independently. And I find that to be, that's fine. And it protects me from the thing that you were describing, Joey, about not wanting the association of the baggage or like what it's like, I don't fully fit this, but that doesn't mean I can't like this or I can't pursue or make space for this interest that I have.
But like I think of you, Jess, as part of like the baking community, because if I have, say, like, you know, all the Bon Appetit drama or the like whatever drama happening in the food world, I know that you're going to know about it because you're a part of that community. I think also the internet makes that complicated because just because you're not vocal in the community or like active on a daily basis, you're still like following the brands that you like or engaging with content that you find interesting and sharing it with your friends and your like personal like groups.
Yeah, it's like being a member of a community versus being a leader of a community. Like in that sense, that's totally fair. If you can be a member by witnessing, just like, you know, showing up, doing the things, paying your dues every quarter. You like bake a cupcake. That's like, you know, that's like, sure, that's one way. That's one way to prove your membership to this. Like,
there's a part of this, right? So I pulled up the definition because I'm just like, whatever. I'm that guy. It's fine. I'm part of that community. We know you're that guy. I'm part of the like, let's look it up. But the second one is like a feeling of fellowship with others as a result of sharing common attitudes, interests, and goals. Yeah. And I think the fellowship
that's
part
the thing
is
that
the
hung
part
you
that
up.
I struggle with.
Got it.
Where it's like, I don't think there's anything that I do where I'm like, something that you might signal as like a sort of characteristic that I have or a marker of identity or something that I then have fellowship. Like if someone else like rides their bike every day like I do, I'm not like, we're best friends because we ride our bikes. Or if it's like you play D&D also, I'm not like, oh, did we just become best friends? John Stamos. Like, you know, like.
But don't you think that that's sort of that's where it can start? I feel like for a lot of people,
it can, yeah.
It's the whole point is that, wow, we share this, then maybe we can be friends. Not like it's obvious we're close because we share one thing.
Or I think there are also different like fidelities of that. Like it can be just a head nod, like, hey man, do you have
I acknowledge you
a shitty bike ride over the bridge today too? And it's like, yeah, I did too. Cool. See you later. Like, maybe just someone, maybe you can have community just in someone acknowledging, like knowing that someone else acknowledges your like your thing.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, I think the weird part of it is like, I generally like most people. I'm not like a curmudgeon around. No. Like, I don't want to join your stupid community because y'all are dumb or something. Like,
I mean, I am.
But like I'm like I generally like people. I'm friendly. I like talking to people, but I'm also like I think the identity marker of it and like the identity politics of communities is like I don't want to take on any sort of additional things like unconsciously by being like I'm part of this group and you have to like take all of it, like the good and the bad, and I'm like I'll just take like the good parts that I like and, you know, because I'm interested in sci-fi. It's not like I'm going to like make friends with other people who like sci-fi or riding their bike or are a dad or, you know,
that's the worst.
Whatever. Yeah.
I feel so bad. I love seeing the pain in a parent's face when they realize that they have to engage with someone simply because they are both parents, like at the playground or something. And it's just like,
yikes. That
guy just wanted to read his book, and now he has to be like, yeah, did you change a diaper today? Like, and it's just like, oh, I'm so sorry.
Just like, but isn't it like, what about when you find someone who also agrees that vanilla is an underappreciated flavor? You don't have to call yourself a vanilla person, that you probably would, because obviously that's really cool. And then who knows where this can go? Maybe you'll be business partners. Maybe you'll just enjoy ice cream together. But that is the fellowship. It doesn't have to be a club.
Isn't there like a study that came out that it's like you can really only be friends with so many people? And like you can
Dunbar
only
number?
Yeah, it's like you can only have so many people in your life. And I have a theory that like 90% of the things that people exclaim publicly could probably be saved for a group chat. Like, doesn't need to be on the internet. Do you need to shout it across into the ether? Like, maybe you should just text your mom. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's right. Yeah, Dunbar's number is like you can have like 150 people in your network in like sort of decreasing groups of like value and import, right? Like you have like 5 people that are like very important and then like 15 that are kind of important and all the way down to like the 150. But I mean, I think like that's the thing of like, what is your community being like? It is just sort of like, maybe it gets used as like a concept of identity politics where it's sort of like some sort of alignment based on an agenda, which maybe then like is fine with me, I guess. Like if you guys have like some common purpose, like great. But, you know, lumping everyone who likes a thing or is into a thing together into one group feels weird. I don't know.
That's just okay, so I feel like I'm really glad that we're bringing up the friends and like the family, the people that would be invited to a small wedding or celebration of life. That is not the same thing as your community. In fact, I think that's the whole thing is that those people are like it takes village type commentaries, like that's maybe like your personal community insofar as they literally revolve around you because they are your chosen people. But anything else is a community with a basis of something, right? A topic or an interest or a
geography.
Yeah, geography, a fandom of sports ball. And it doesn't have to indicate closeness, does it?
I mean, I don't know. I don't think so. What this just brought me to is like, it kind of makes me think of like if we go super like tribal or like, whatever, like we don't need 2 people interested in baking. We only need 1 baker in our community. So it's like, are we actually doing a disservice to ourselves by lumping ourselves into like groups of runners and groups of bakers? Like, or should that just be a conference like once every 5 years where you guys meet up and talk about the things? Like,
yeah.
Like, does every community need like 4 people really into crocheting? Like, no.
Unless
I don't
it's
understand.
Fun to crochet together, I guess. Yeah. I mean, I think that like that's the thing. Like, I have friends, right? But I think even in that question, that maybe if generous interpretations, I have friends.
Joey has friends. I've seen the group chats.
Okay, so take for instance like the Jewish American community, big community. Very large, many niches of this. But it's how one year where I did not have a Passover seder to go to, through my friend, was invited to some effectively a stranger's dinner table and that is, it says nothing about our existing relationship now, or, you know, it's just like, to me, community is an excuse to reach out to strangers because otherwise we stay in our circles and our bubbles. And if you can expand yourself to multiple communities, whether you are an active member or not, it's the acknowledgement that you talked about, Hannah, is the reason why it helps people break down their walls. It's like, see, we have something in common, and therefore now I can be a more open person. I would contest the idea that it closes us off. If anything, it's the reason that we stop being in our own tiny circle of the same people that we know.
Yeah, I mean, the fellowship point is like, right? Like, how do you go into fellowship? Is it just like, hey, you ride your bike, I ride my bike too? Like, that's cool. But like, maybe it's just like a lot of the things that I'm interested in, I wind up doing. I socialize a lot, but the things that I'm interested in, maybe are things that I'm doing by myself, or like I'm doing it with a group of friends, and the friends are actually like the more important part of it versus the thing, right? Like, I play D&D because it's just like an opportunity to like hang out with like that one group of friends. And like, also I very much enjoy it, but if I wasn't playing with them, I don't know that I would like go find a group of like randoms to be like, can I be in your like campaign or something? Or like, same with, some of the other things I do. It's like finding the people is more important than like the thing that I'm doing.
Yeah. It's funny, I actually do things alone to protect the thing. I usually like to run alone because, God forbid, and this is what I'm stressed about, tomorrow I'm running at this like new running club. What if I hate everyone there and it ruins my workout, and then I just like don't enjoy doing track workouts anymore? Like what if you meet someone riding bikes, and this has happened to me, where we're like riding across the bridge together and we start chatting because we have like a similar bike or similar style or something like that. And then they just say something so off-putting that I'm just like, this is why
I'm never riding a bike again, because that person is trash.
This is why I haul ass through like crowded bike corralling areas so that I don't have to engage and like ruin the experience of the thing that I'm doing. And maybe that's also just a New York thing, because the likelihood of something being ruined by people is so high. Yeah.
It might just be like, what is your threshold? Like, what is your tolerance for community?
0.
It's like that thing where like people who drive Jeeps will like wave to other people who drive Jeeps.
I wave to people in Jeeps all the time just to piss them off.
Right.
Like, obviously not everyone is doing that, but that is like a very like low threshold example where it's like, we both drive Jeeps, that's cool, like wave, versus like having like non-porous high boundary type of attitude around communities where maybe I have that, and then as a result I'm excluding myself from all communities. Anyways, I think that brings us to Jess's wrap-up corner. Jess, can you do 2 wrap-up corners in one?
Wow. Buy one, get one wrap. Sure. Let's give it a shot. Hannah started running, and so then brought and also ate MacroBars like Regina-George. Bringing us to a whole conversation about the reasons that we might be more amenable to new activities, experiences, pursuits at different times of our lives. And Hannah also recommended that we go watch documentaries from Adam Curtis, BBC documentarian. And then Joey was like, what if we also bring up the communities thing? Because as we think of ourselves as changing beings, are we also associating ourselves with different identity markers, groups, ships of fellows? And I don't know if that has to do with, I don't know exactly the framework that we aligned on, if it has to do with whether maybe you feel like you're a part of many communities or not, because you are or are not attaching your identity to those communities, or maybe you're just a really open-minded person, or maybe you're just a really closed-minded person. But I think all of this conversation is to say that at any time in our lives, we should feel open to experiencing new things and meeting new people and playing a recorder and embarrassing our partners. And I just thank you for taking us on this chaotic journey. And thank you, Hannah, for being here.
Yeah, y'all can be part of my community.
Yeah, we're a community now.
Yeah.
A community
we made
of 3.
You guys are
one.
You're part of the podcasting community.
No.
Oh, no. Us and Joe Rogan. Critical Nonsense is a Sylvain production.
Brought to you by Running for Fun, a very exclusive community.
we'd like to thank our executive producer and big community member, Jess Vander, as well as as well as our special guest and big MacroBar fan, Hannah Jegart.
Okay, he actually called me fat.
We have to thank, and we would love to, our sound engineer and kind-hearted absentee, Alex Contel. Thanks for cutting through this.
And of course, thanks to our programming coordinator and jack of all trades, master of all trades, Les Jacobs.
And with production crew and premium icebreakers, Sarah Gilbert and Nora Mestridge. Thank you.
And as always, thanks, Helen.
Thanks.
Special thanks to bulking season, making us all feel better about just eating more.
Or
give it a name.
Buying wholesale. Yeah. Produce.
Buying wholesale.
At bulking, a discount.
Bulk buys are good for bulking season. Or MacroBars, apparently. Hannah, your bulking and cutting seasons are out of whack.
I feel like a hawk with those like hoods on when it comes to those words. So I don't know.
A hawk with a hood on?
I don't know. I'm like sweating just thinking about.
I am part of the falconry community. That's
Do you have a falcon?
Completely, of course, naturally.
Can't tell if you're being serious.
I'm 100% not being serious.
Oh, I was like, you're from New Hampshire. I have no idea.
Could in New York City. Yes, just my bird of prey. Me and my raptor. I would like to thank raptors, the birds, because y'all got sweet names. I don't know why we're calling them like eagles and falcons. Just call them all raptors because that's what ornithologists call them, and be done with it. They're all raptors.
I want to thank Adam Curtis because I want to meet him and I added him on LinkedIn, and so I hope he adds me back.
Oh my goodness, that reminds me of that time. I want to thank my friend Allison Hacker for reaching out to the creator of I Spy with me when we had this really genius I Spy spin-off idea, and I'm pretty sure he wrote back to her and was like, "Hello, Allison," and then she was like, "I got scared and I didn't know what to say." And so I don't think that conversation went anywhere, but I'd like to thank her, and I'd also like to thank the creator of I Spy because that's a fun game.
It is a fun game.
And book series. Is it a puzzle? Is it a book? Is it a...
I have no idea what you're talking about, if I'm being completely honest.
What?
Wait, what? You never read I Spy?
It's the big books, and it'd be like
with like all the stuff, and then you're like, can you find 2 turtle doves, but also a penny?
Where's Waldo?
No, it's stuff.
Were they pictures or paintings?
Pictures. And I think there were some that were photographs, and then others, I think they expanded to be not photographs.
It's really CGI.
Well, yeah. With that, go join a club.
Or don't.
Or not.
Or don't. Yeah. We love you. Goodbye.
Okay, thanks. Bye.
Cut it.
Alex is going to be like, what do I do?
Cut the segment.
Alex is going to be crying by the end of this.